Hello everybody. Today's guest speaker in the Business Web Practices class is Peter Ramsing, who spoke last year at our series, and the students really enjoyed his talk. So he's back again to speak to you all about
ongoing adventures of a front-end web developer.
Ongoing adventures of a front-end web developer. So let's welcome Peter.
So being that we are a smaller group, I figured instead of going on and on about all the things I know about that you don't really care about, just get to know a little bit about you all and what you all are doing and what you want to get out of potentially this and or what you're wanting to get out of the web development. I have web development to offer, so what in theory you're getting out of it. So if anyone in the audience wants to share a little bit about what you're doing presently and what you're potentially wanting to get out of this, it'll help me guide where I go with this, because I could go on for hours and hours and hours. So anyway, go for it.
I guess I'll just introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Melissa Buter. I have a degree from WSU Vancouver, but I'm going back to school for web development specifically.
Nice.
Just to do the associate's, the AAT degree.
Mm-hmm.
So my issue is, I got my degree in 2013. It was a mixture of web development, web design, animation, video editing, all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't focus. I didn't have like one thing to focus on. I kind of learned all of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I only took like literally technically 2 classes in web development, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. And
So it's been hard for me to get a job, and it's been about maybe 4 years since I graduated.
Okay.
I've had regular jobs, no coding or anything. So I'm back
cool.
in school.
Awesome. Anything else?
Hi, my name is Jenny. I'm a web and graphic design student, almost graduating next quarter. The word development scares me. I don't really do much of the coding, so I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to get into today. But I'm very interested in, I do a lot of WordPress and building WordPress sites. I'm focused on the user experience, designing the front end and making it usable and being able to communicate with developers when I want stuff done.
Awesome. Pleasure.
My name is Stefan, and I'm studying on web development also, just so that way I can learn a lot of the stuff to utilize for my own projects, but also have skills in order to be able to, do something, have like a regular job so that I can fund those projects as well. I'm trying to get into podcasting myself, so I figure web development would also be able to help me in that endeavor.
Yeah.
I've worked in content management, which is the sort of non-technical side of dealing with web content management systems.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here just to try to get some understanding more of the code that I've been botching as I've been trying to make changes to things. And so yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Joni Jagelski. I'm going for the AAT web development, and I think I've taken 1 quarter so far. And so I have a bit of a road ahead of me, but if you could go over kind of a day in the life of a front-end web developer. What am I?
You sound
yeah. So what are we going to expect when we're going out into the job market, and who's going to want to hire us?
Yeah. Awesome. 1 or 2 more? All right. Seeing none, I'll intro myself. I'm Peter Ramsing. I've done talk here before. I am a front-end web developer. Almost losing the front-end side because I do a lot of back-end as well, but I'm a front-end web developer. That's kind of where my focus is. How I got started in this started at Starbucks. I was a barista. I didn't want to get into writing code. I wanted to make Starbucks more efficient. I saw that we were splitting our tips at Starbucks. It's a process where basically every week we gather all the tips from the week, and based on how many hours you worked, we create a, how many dollars per hour you earn based on the tips, and split it. It was really inefficient, error-prone, and I decided, hey, I can make this better with a spreadsheet. I started with a spreadsheet, and I went to the bank with my computer, and I made it more efficient, and it took less time. And this is annoying to take my computer with me, so I made an app. I had no idea what I was doing. I Googled a ton, landed myself in PHP land, and just kind of slowly made it better. I made a really bad version, made an okay version, I made a better version, I made a version that finally, yesterday or 2 days ago, the domain lapsed. But at the time, it was actually something that went from an hour of time it would take to split tips to about 15 minutes. It improved accuracy, helped us with better tax tabulation, and it made us, one thing that really annoyed all of us at Starbucks is when you basically took all the coins, took it to the bank, and they gave you bills. And in order to split it evenly, you would grab a few 10s and 5s, but mainly you just got 1s. And everyone looked like they were in a different profession. And that was one thing that the app was able to tell you exactly how much change you would need, or what denominations you needed. So it was really, really helpful for a lot of us baristas. A couple of stores started using it, and I'm like, Starbucks, this is awesome. Use this, please. And I want to come write software for you, because mainly I like solving problems. And I think that's the key. If your desire is to write code, you are not going to be a good software developer working for a company, because there's very few pure software developers that all they do is write code. And we'll go into the daily and the life. And the reason why I say that is, if you don't have a desire to solve problems, I didn't want to write code. I wanted to make Starbucks more efficient. You will basically sit there spinning your wheels, feeling like you're not doing what you want to be doing because you don't write code, you solve problems. And that's what I did at Starbucks. And they saw that. Ended up, they were like, hey, come up and work for us up in Seattle. I'm like, pretty girl down here, and I'm marrying her. And we parted ways. Ultimately, they couldn't use the app because there's legality regarding tips and what Starbucks can manage. It was kind of a bummer because we actually ended up tabulating it would save Starbucks a couple $1,000,000 a year, if not more, based on, because it would give us time to split the tips. An hour, 15 minutes, 15,000 stores once a week, money, money, money. And I'm saying that as a reminder that the little things that you do to make things more efficient, wherever you are, scale. And that's the beautiful thing about software, is I didn't need, if I wanted to scale this app, and let's say it was something about something that Starbucks could do easily, it's not like we needed to hire more people to make that happen. You just could pump it on a server and distribute it to a couple people. It was very simple to scale this thing that saved money. And that's the cool thing about software, is you're able to solve problems and scale more easily. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
Yeah, no.
I'm not a developer, but my ears perked up. You said I'm an Excel geek, so you did something in Excel and then turned that into a program?
Yeah, basically, lots of people write Excel programs. Whether it's a sum, in Excel, when you do sum, this cell and this cell, that is the exact same thing as in Python or JavaScript. When you say var A equals 12, var B equals 13, A plus B equals 25. There you go.
So like all those 15 years I've been doing spreadsheets as an exec secretary, I could like say I'm a developer.
Yeah. But yes, in your head, yes, of course, you are solving problems. Your code is going to be a little bit different, your syntax is different, but yeah, you are way ahead of someone who's just coming in all green. Absolutely. And yeah, I literally just took the same logic that I had in my Excel sheet and I brought it into code. It took a lot of changing, and then you get into the user experience side, which sounds like that's... And really, you're trying to solve problems. You're not trying to use the latest and greatest to do this thing. In fact, usually the latest and greatest is just full of bugs. You want to solve a problem. The best tools I use today are some of the most simple, almost old tools that work. Now, I mean, even I'm refurbing and not refurbing, I'm doing a couple of bug fixes on an app that I built 4 or 5 years ago. It doesn't use the latest and greatest framework. It doesn't use all the fancy fangled things, but it works. It serves these people that use it really, really well. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me. Presently, I work for a company in downtown Portland. We build sales enablement software. I won't get into all of that, but if you're curious about sales enablement, come chat with me. We integrate with a bunch of different companies regarding, we build our software that integrates with other pieces of software and then stands alone as well. And it's a really interesting area. I learn a ton every single day. And personally, I'm a me. I've got a wife. We like to go shopping, actually. She's a fashion blogger, so we do a lot of that. And yes, I wear this every day. This is my software getup. And sometimes people think I'm from New York, and that's funny, because I'm not. But yeah, that's me. Any questions thus far?
What's your degree in?
I actually do not have a degree.
Awesome.
I got a GED. So, yeah. And I only got GED because I got a GED. Yep. There we go. There's the agenda for today. Pending any other question. And all that to say, so you'll see in there 2 question and answers, because just going through like what we did last year was really, really good to just kind of feed off of your guys' questions, because I can tell you a bunch of information about things you don't care about. I don't want to do that. So I figured a state of web development and day in the life give you enough ammo to throw back at me in question form. And also answer your own questions. No, like, if you know the answer, please answer. Rewatching the video from last year in preparation, and you yourselves came up with some really, really good answers. So I'm not the only speaker here, and it shouldn't be that way. So, state of web development. I asked the team that I work on now, what's the state of web development? I'm giving a talk, and one of our developers said, it sucks. And unfortunately, he's right. It's hard to be a web developer these days. It's hard to be a developer in general, but in particular, web development has gotten ever increasingly difficult due to the immense scale of new things coming at us every single day. And the joke is a new JavaScript framework is added. You know, they have the board where it says, you know, it's been 5 days since our last injury, and the joke is it's 0 days since the last JavaScript framework. It's kind of true. It's kind of not at the same time, but there is something to be said with, you know, Angular used to be the new hotness. Then there was Angular 2, but now Angular 2 is no more, and it took about a couple of months for Angular 4 to be a thing. And everyone was, you know, screaming, you know, React a few days ago, and now they're saying Vue.js, and you know, there's all these things, but that's just the tip of the iceberg in, you know, your core tools that you're using. What about all the things that make those tools work? I do not write JavaScript on a regular basis. Even though I write in .js files, actually we use .es6 files, but neither here nor there. I write in JavaScript files, but I do not write JavaScript. I write a subset of JavaScript that is then converted into another subset of JavaScript that then the browser runs for efficiency. And so that I don't actually have to write what the browser wants. And I'm saying that because it's annoying and complex, and we have systems that then take our code, mash it together, plop it through, create minified versions, create non-minified versions, create maps of that so that we can then retrospectively look back through, figure out where that line of code used to be. It's a mess. And all this breaks all the time. It breaks on my machine. It doesn't break on my other developer on our team's machine. And it breaks on our build system. It doesn't break on ours. Tests randomly fail because of a node dependency that changed out from under us, because we have maybe 1,000 packages that we do not have control over, because we just say, hey, we don't want to solve this problem internally, we're going to solve it with this package, and that package then solves another problem that installs another package. And I kind of went into this rant last year when I was here, and it's almost gotten worse. Yeah. And it's hard. A developer wanting to get started with something can usually get themselves off the ground. Let's say if they want to get started with React, and I know Bruce has a lot of expertise in getting started with React because he's doing it right now. I haven't touched a new React project in a while, but when I was doing it, it took me a long time to just get it working, because you're not writing HTML or CSS or JavaScript, you're writing React, and then it gets transpiled into HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and to get that flow working just so on your machine, because it matters, and all that to say is it's hard. But at the same time, Chrome, which is what we call an evergreen browser, it updates underneath the users. So gone are the days of IE7, IE8, IE9, and having to wait for users to install these new updates. They update themselves. Firefox is an evergreen browser. Internet Explorer is an evergreen browser, and several others are Edge is an evergreen browser now. Edge.
Safari.
Pardon?
Safari. Safari
is not, by my understanding, an evergreen browser. However, they are a good citizen of easy updates. So you usually don't have to wait for several years to get updates. You're going to get updated in a year, and they actually, I believe they're transitioning potentially to be evergreen. Don't quote me on that. Things change quickly, and actually the latest update with Safari may have changed that, but my understanding is it's not. But it's still a pretty good citizen.
Yeah, it's still an App Store update.
Yeah. Whereas Chrome will forcibly update underneath you, and try as you might to freeze it, you probably aren't going to. All that to say is Chrome, I just mentioned all that transpilation where I'm not writing JavaScript, I'm writing a subset of JavaScript that we transpile into real JavaScript that then the browser runs. In Chrome, we don't actually have to do that anymore. The reason, I'm writing JavaScript, I'm writing ECMAScript 2015 JavaScript, which is a different version and all that fun stuff. We can get into that if we want to, but neither here nor there. Normal browsers couldn't understand it, so you had to then convert it into the old version of JavaScript. And it did all its magic. Babel is a tool to do that, several other tools are in a moment. But now Chrome supports ECMAScript 2015, so we don't have to do that transpilation process anymore. So the state of web is getting better. So we actually can get rid of Babel, except for legacy dependencies. So, getting better. But yeah, go.
What's the professional definition of a long time?
Depends.
Days, hours, or minutes?
In web development?
Yeah.
So let's say like long-term support for a browser, maybe?
No, figuring something out to write, as you're writing the code.
Oh, to figure something. Oh. It depends. It depends on, like, some bugs can be super easy. Other bugs can be hunkering down in a random model of graphics processor on some random user's computer that you can't figure out that happens to only be in a certain specific version of Firefox. And we're still sitting on that bug for a month. Actually, 7 months. I'm not trying to be annoying and not answering, but it depends. It so depends. And sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. And sometimes you just happen to see it sideways and you figured it out then. Yeah. It really depends. And that's kind of like, that's what makes some of this really, really hard. Your operating system filters out from under you. They might have a plugin that doesn't interact with your app the way you thought it did. Like a browser extension, so we actually had a bug. We built this great application, it did this great thing, and this Chrome extension completely made it not work anymore. What's going on? We have no idea. Oh, this Chrome extension decides to completely hijack our code. Great. That took us a while.
And Peter, to give you an example of that, I don't know if anyone uses Grammarly, the Grammarly Chrome plugin.
Yeah.
That's one plugin that I use to help improve my writing constantly. That was interfering with Canvas in such a way it drove me nuts and battier for a while until I figured out that that extension was causing Canvas to act erratically. Yep. So there you go.
I have a kind of a hijacked extension that I've is that the correct word? I built an extension that basically like attempts to beat on whatever you're working on, and it does things and it manipulates things, and it kind of it allows you to determine a few. Anyway, it's something. Basically, I just built something that tries to break your code via the extension method as a way to figure out, well, maybe this bug is an extension. But yeah, so that all that to say is like it so depends. And did the QA person actually write a good script for you to figure out actually how to reproduce the bug? Does that sort of answer the question? I know it didn't, but maybe it got you further.
Got me a little further.
Okay. If you want to re-ask or yeah, keep hitting at it and/or pull me aside. Okay. But yeah, it's not an easy one to answer. Yeah.
Did you encounter a lot of systems where the clients have all this customization and they can't update the context management system, or else everything breaks, so their security is a mess?
Oh, well, now you're getting into, yeah, we've seen a few of those. In fact, actually, we had one customer that they had to be on XP, and they actually used a virtual machine of a virtual machine to, and the reason why they needed XP is because I think they needed IE6 for whatever application they were running, and our app needed to work in IE6. So yeah, we've seen a few of those. Luckily, nowadays, and back to the state of web development, we're able to kind of say tough luck to a lot of those people now, because it is becoming best practice to update to the newest, where it used to be best practice to hold your updates. Now, we still have a couple of issues where there's a long-term version of Firefox it's like, they don't call it LTS. I keep thinking of it as LTS, with long-term support, but it's something else. But the gist is they won't add any new features. They will just backpatch some bugs if they only use that. And you run into some issues there, but it is getting better. And you're able to kind of just say, well, sorry, to a lot more people now, which is really nice. And I'd say in the next year, we might even be able to say goodbye to IE9, which is, IE11.
Wow.
Basically said goodbye to IE9. And I think product decision makers are going to be saying bye to IE11 here soon, which is awesome. Solves so many problems. All right. I think I've rambled on state of web. Yeah?
I was going to say, I want to ask a question. So specifically about the updates. So in the past, I guess they would have held on for updates so that they could gather as much information as they could to fix everything as much as possible. So is it that they're just doing updates, it's easier to update one problem as it comes to light rather than wait to do everything?
Can I be annoying and ask who they is?
Any, developers. So for Windows, the Internet Explorer or whatever, so they would hold on, and instead of being like Mozilla, they would put out this is 1.1 the fix patch.
Yeah. I believe it's just it's a change in thought process. Where you don't buy software in a box, it is just there. And you don't purchase version 2, you purchase it. And versions are, you can even see it instead of IE8, it's Edge. I actually don't know what version of Edge. I think we're on Chrome 60, no, we're in 80 maybe in Chrome. But yeah, it depends. And even if you look in what Chrome version you're on, there's actually then a huge number there, and it's going to be different all over the place. So I think it's just more of a larger shift of, I don't buy a version, I buy a product. Yeah.
I probably should notice it. Can you just give a really brief explanation of the difference between a front-end developer and what a back-end developer is?
Sure.
Because my brain is front-end design, so that's where my brain is thinking.
And all that's no question is the wrong question. That's one thing as developers, we need to be good citizens and knowing that oftentimes developers will be like, sales and business, they don't know what we're doing. We're the high, in reality, they're the ones that make the money that allow us to have salaries and we need to, anyway. So yeah, ask any question because it's not the wrong question. But yeah, to answer that, so are you familiar with client side? Are you familiar with that at all? Is that?
Not familiar with that term. I'm probably...
No, you're totally fine. I have a browser here, Chrome. Everything here in the Chrome browser, all this, I have keys. All the code that is shipped to my computer, that lives here, all of this, basically everything from the, I don't know but yeah, everything from the internet connection to here is mine, and that's client side. It lives in the browser. I can interact with it. I can engage with it. It's the fonts, text, all that fun stuff. And that is what the front-end developer works on. They work on what comes to the client.
The code, that's the HTML, the CSS?
HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Back-end developers are what write on the server. So right now this is hosted on GitHub. They're the ones that wrote the code that manages this on a server in Seattle, probably where this lives, or maybe it's in Prineville. I'm not sure where this in particular is hosted. They're the one that write the code that delivers this to the client.
What is the key? And what code is it?
PHP, Ruby,
okay.
Python. Yeah, so it's front-end developers write the code that comes to the client. Back-end developers write the code that delivers that and does processing and does logic. Where do you put the logic? Anyway. What do you think, Bruce?
I think both have their respective roles within the software development process, and I always tell students to either focus on one or the other. Trying to be a full stack developer nowadays is a tough job.
Yes. I don't want to call myself a full stack web developer, even though I write both back-end code and front-end code regularly. We're a small company, we only have about 10 developers, so it's kind of what we have to do. But we all specialize even still. I specialize in CSS. If there's CSS problems, it comes my way, and there's another developer that handles those. If it's back-end and really, really back-end, we go to a few other developers. I'm not the one who they call for that. So yeah, you still specialize, but yeah. It's kind of the gist of the difference.
So you actually pick up the design, the layout, the columns, whether you're using that, you kind of design the mobile first, that view and all that stuff there, and send it to your developers to make it function.
We receive design from the designers.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you write the HTML code and the CSS.
Yeah.
And then the other people do the next step.
Yep. Yep.
I'm just trying to like figure out the path.
No, yeah, you're good, you're good. And ultimately, a lot of times it's kind of all in one, but yeah, that's the gist.
So when you're talking about developing apps or whatever,
Yep.
it would probably, I'm just guessing, it'd probably be a back-end type thing. I'm not sure when you're talking about apps that you guys build, front end or back end.
It depends.
But, what was I gonna ask? Oh, no, I forgot. Oh, the extensions, the browser
Yeah.
extensions. When, like, on a personal computer,
Yep.
when I'm home or something, there are extensions that the user can download.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about developing an app, do you guys keep in mind that, can't extensions be disabled? So like, would your application work if the user were to like disable the extension on Chrome or something?
Yeah, in the case of the bug that we ran into, we had to say no, it has to work without them disabling it. That was ultimately the answer that we had to have. It kind of depends. Think of it if you found a problem with your car and they said, well, you just can't have a passenger drive with you. Is that an acceptable answer or not? Or do they say, well, we've understood this is a potential situation. You're just going to have to deal with the fact that it may or may, like our Ford right now has a recall on. It may or may not overheat in this, so there's a difference. Like, that's kind of, I'll just let it be. But if I can't have my passenger, so what's the bug? And everything, back to, what's the problem? What's the downside? So yeah, and usually you just have to assume your user is going to do nothing to help you.
Yeah. Is that why, as you said before, that the state of web development right now is a little difficult at the moment, but still getting better?
Yeah, because you just don't know your operating system. And when I say operating system, I don't necessarily mean Mac, PC, Windows, Linux. You don't know your browser. You don't know what could be going on. You don't know what their zoom factor, their default zoom is. We had a bug submitted. What the heck? We've never seen this go on. Well, he had default zoom on his browser set to something different. Oh, hey, we didn't know that. That's a problem. Sorry, Bruce. We don't play accessibility super well. It is really tough because you don't know your operating system, which is why sometimes I'll talk to software developers who don't develop for web and they just look at me and go, why? Why would you do that? Why? You're insane.
And that's why you say it's good at like some of these old web web browsers are becoming more and more obsolete. The more and more obsolete they become, the easier it gets to do the job of a web developer.
Because you're able to use the newest technologies that make your life easier.
Like, someone comes to you with the 5770 and says, turn it into a Tesla, you're like, no, that's obsolete technology. Why don't you just get a Tesla? Kind of, not really.
I don't fully understand that question.
Well, it's an older model, and they want to make it into something that's new technology, but since it's so obsolete and made such long a time ago that the process is not worth the time put into making it that way as far as just hitting the new technology to begin.
I don't know if the comparison fits. I don't see anything wrong with what you're saying, but I don't think that it matches entirely, because there's a little bit of a difference. Whereas the user has the browser and you're giving them something.
Oh, okay.
Right, so they don't have the browser and your software. They just have the browser with which you're giving them.
Right.
And the reason why we like the fact that your browsers are updating more regularly is that we can use better technology when we ship the software to you. We don't have to rely on older methods that might be inefficient, are gosh darn annoying. Even just simple things within the language that we take advantage of that allow us as developers to write it better, to provide a better user experience for the user. Usually it comes down to performance for the user and ability to ship features faster as a developer.
Is there a point at which somebody has a site and everything in it, it's maybe like old HTML, and everything is just so antiquated that you just kind of flush twice and rewrite it?
The beautiful thing about web is that'll still work.
Okay.
And that is actually one thing that's really nice, and a reason why sometimes I just write in basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or I leave JavaScript out entirely. But you're asking, at what point do you just say, you're gone, we're writing a brand new app?
Right. Does it happen very often?
Lots. So it happens a lot. But most of the time what happens is you are only able to write a part of it. An example, back to the front end, back end, you might be able to write a new front end, but your back end is going to be the old back end.
Okay.
So you might
Yeah, I guess I was talking just front end there. I was thinking that way.
It happens a fair amount, but usually it only happens about 3/4 of the way. And it hurts for about 1.5 years.
Okay.
And it's extremely expensive, and the business usually hates it because for that time you're extremely unproductive. But sometimes it's the only way to deliver what product and the business needs. And so usually it hinges on product needing something that you cannot deliver with the old technology.
So us as going into the market with current technology and learning only current technology, are there going to be some pitfalls for us as we encounter older technology that we aren't familiar with? Or is it, I just don't know.
Well, it's kind of, and we talked about this last year, and don't lose your question. What to learn? Do you learn the latest? We have an Angular 1.4 and an Angular 1.6 and a couple of other versions. We have no plans to move. We may integrate a little bit of React here and there, but for the most part, we're going to be an Angular shop for a few more years, if not longer. And there's going to be a lot of companies like that. So is it beneficial for you to learn old Angular? Yes. Is it beneficial for you to learn the latest and greatest new stuff? Yeah. But I think what's more important is learning what those are based off of. Angular, and by the way, before we get too far down this path, are we familiar with what Angular, React? Okay.
First time hearing it.
Okay.
You don't have to slow down from it. They all
No.
You're a web developer, so.
And that's the, so lots of times I go marching into the product or business and say, we need to update to the new version of Angular, and they go, oh yeah? Well, I have a customer saying we need this new feature yesterday, so no. So yeah, no, it's that us developers can totally get lost in, we need this Angular fantasticness, and I'm just like, no, we just need products released. Anyway, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the front-end world languages of choice. HTML is the markup, has the text. CSS tells that text what to look like and how to be colored. JavaScript says how to interact with this and how to make it move, and CSS can make it move, but neither here nor there. It dynamically moves things in and out. You can write just straight JavaScript, but it's really, really intensive and not very performant if you just write it vanilla. And I say vanilla meaning you just use what the browser gives you, just the tools that the browser gives you. And what React, Angular, Vue.js, Ember.js, Aurelia, all the others do is they obfuscate the annoying complexity and just the complete redundancy that you'll have to do if you write pure vanilla JavaScript. And they bring to the surface some basic functionality, such as I want to have this page cycle with a new page. I don't want to write the JavaScript to do that. I want to write something much shorter. And I want to just be able to say, take this data and put it here now, and then flip those two when you hit these buttons. And I can write that in maybe 500 or 600 lines of JavaScript or 14 lines of Angular or React or So that's what it is. It's a tool. It's a library or framework that sits on top of what the browser has to offer and allows you to do it more efficiently. Bruce, thoughts?
And what we teach here are fundamentals, and we also focus on learning how to learn new things, like some of the things Peter's talking about, in using the words React or Vue.js or React or Angular. There's so many new things flying out there, but they're all, you couldn't approach those new things without understanding the fundamental languages of the web.
Yeah. And
okay?
At the end of the day, they are still JavaScript.
Right.
That's all they are, or JavaScript HTML, as they say. So that's why, to sort of answer the question, you should learn what you say, fundamentals. What is actually happening here? Do you have to understand all the behind the scenes of Angular? No. But if you don't understand what JavaScript is and how it works and some core fundamental principles of JavaScript, you will not be able to pivot as fast as the industries will need you to. Because I write Ember today, I will need to write something else tomorrow. What to learn? Kind of depends. If you want to work for a brand new startup, you better be on your game with the fresh, latest and greatest. If you want to work for a little bit more embedded, older company, probably something a little bit older, but learn the principles.
So Peter and I were talking prior to class today, and we were talking about Slack, and everyone knows that Slack's a pretty hot product right now. It's got millions of users, and it's a great product. I enjoy using it, and it's built on the back end using PHP, right? Which some of the more hip, modern startup developers would say, they would, put their nose up at you. PHP, but if you look at a product like Slack, which is, worth $5 billion now or something like that, it's built using PHP. Same thing with WordPress. It's all PHP. It's not the latest and greatest, flashbang JavaScript framework library. So they're all based on, these core languages that are well known, well established, and well understood, and well maintainable.
So, well, and that's if you want to be employed for a long time at a good company, probably with a good salary, you could probably be fine learning PHP, calling it a day. I'm deeply offended that you're leaving. I'm just like, have a good one.
I don't like what you said about PHP.
Yeah. That's perfect timing, actually, right? But yeah, we were kind of joking. The backbone of the world is written in PHP, and the bedrock is COBOL.
Why is PHP bad? Had a step child of coding or something?
So they have released a new version. It makes it a lot better. But kind of like I want to write in. I want to write things more easily. I want to use new methods that maybe are faster. And PHP is just kind of known to be old and ugly. It looks ugly. It's hard to read. There's a lot of things that. It's not an older set. It's just old. It's. Yeah. It's.
But you can find a ton of jobs.
Oh yeah.
You can find a ton of jobs.
They can't find anyone.
So is it kind of a matter of everybody wants to know it's the greatest, but usually the best practice is something that's going to try and true this whole time because everything it's kind of capable of and the problems it usually has.
Either tried and true or the fact that it's too expensive to swap it out.
Do you want the original Xbox or the Xbox One? Right? Yeah. I know, I was waiting for someone to say that.
I'm still working on the Atari, man.
But yeah, it's kind of the thought process. Lots of companies, would we love to not be on Angular one and change? Yeah, we'd love to be able to latest and greatest. You want to pay us to do that while we attempt to, no, right? It's expensive. It's massively expensive.
And bleeding edge is expensive.
Oh yeah, and
cut yourself.
And then it does fall. There's what you're saying is also true. Tried and true. But yeah, bleeding edge isn't tried and true. But usually, like, a couple of years in, it's tried and true enough to work. But it's too expensive to switch to.
If it lasts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Let's see. You had a question that we've been given. Then you, yeah.
Yeah, when you were saying delivering the software, was that like, is your company on the web, or are you actually sending them software to use on a computer?
We are on the web, but we also have installable packages.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all delivered through the web. But yeah, we have both a website and installable packages in whatever software they're using.
Okay.
But it's still all web. And even like Chrome, we have a Chrome extension as well. So.
What all packages do you have for
Salesforce and other?
Or like for what software are you talking about?
Salesforce, Dynamics, others like that.
So CRM system, Salesforce is a cloud-based provider of support and sales, customer relationship management software. Microsoft Dynamics is a customer relationship management piece of software. So for those type of platforms.
Okay. Okay. And they have their own instances, if you will, of and. They tout themselves as software, so you don't install anything on your premises. They call it on-prem. It's not installed in your servers. It's their servers. They manage it, but you still have to install packages and things like that.
So it's an online fancy database, like an Access database. But nice.
It does. Oh, yeah.
Did you say Access?
That's what I used to build databases, and I don't know anything else.
But yeah, we could go for hours and hours on what Salesforce does. But yeah, it's just a relationship manager.
Okay.
Yeah. Go for it. Or sorry, did that answer it? Okay. Yeah. Go for it.
You danced through PHP, but you didn't get a straight answer. Is it just because it's bulletproof that people write things like Slack on it?
I don't know why Slack wrote it, but if I had to guess, it was because whoever was, when they were starting it, that's what he knew, and he knew it was best, and it maybe was even maybe Slack before it was Slack, it was something else that they wrote 5 years before Slack became a thing, and it's what he knew, and he wrote it on it, and then it blew up, and they couldn't pivot, and now it's too deeply engrossed and embedded in it that they're can't change it now.
It worked. It works.
And it worked. But I don't know why they chose it. But my guess is it.
I mean, is PHP analogous to C++?
No.
No, it's just.
I mean, I know one's a compiled language and one isn't. That's not the point. Is it as just sort of ubiquitous?
If you look at that graphic that I showed in class during the first week about the language popularity, both C++, right, C#, PHP, Python, JavaScript, they're all up there, in the top used languages in the world. So.
Yeah. Depends on who you ask them.
So the answer to the question is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. I try not to answer things if I don't really do it, if I don't actually. So my guess would be, but yeah, as we got that. How are we doing on time, Bruce?
Keep going.
Sweet.
We have another hour.
Really? Wait, a full hour?
No, I would say a half hour.
That's what I was saying. What was it? The joke last year was like, I got 8 hours, but yeah. All right, a few more questions, and we'll transfer to day in the life, and then we'll do another Q&A.
So with some of the, like a lot of extensions and stuff, and as far as with the programs coming out, innovation always happening with computer programming. You said that it's really not that cheap to be able to transfer that, or to be able to change a company that's setting its way to another computer program. Like as far as it'd be too expensive to convert it.
Man hours.
Man hours, as in man hours. Okay.
Everything has a cost. Everything has a cost, and it's almost humorous how we very quickly think, oh, a couple developers in a room, suddenly that's a couple $1,000s very quickly, and just opportunity costs. As we're transitioning this, our development team that knows our software the best is not delivering product, new features that our customers are expecting. So they're moving to other places. We're losing customers. And at the end of the day, yeah, we're on the latest and greatest. No more customers, no money, and
Stefan, I'd like to add to that the modern day web developers tend to oversimplify what it really takes to perform that type of conversion or something like that.
yeah, and that's kind of, to answer your question. Yeah, you usually get about halfway there and realize, oh, crumbs, this isn't as easy. So you kind of are halfway there and you're like, we're kind of new, and you're like, you never leave the old. It's always hanging around, and it probably will be forever. And you can kind of straddle and you just grow legs to get to the next one, but you stub your leg in the other. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
Is that coming a lot from feature creep?
That being how expensive it is?
No,
No.
how getting stuck in the mud.
Changing requirements.
Getting stuck in the mud. The You can cut this pause out in post.
No.
Getting stuck in the mud, I think, is a combination of you're not in mud, you're in very dense, slow-moving quicksand. So the longer you stay, the harder it is to get out. To get to the next spot, you've got to figure out how to get right? And we're trying to get in now. Could be feature creep, it could be bad quarter, so you don't have the funds to hire the contractors that you're supposed to have. Could be that a design went foobar and you had to redo it, and so you lost a month. It could be that you realized you had to optimize a query, and that took 6. It could be so many things. Could be someone got sick. Could be someone had a baby. Could be a lot of things. I realize I may have compared getting sick and baby. I did not mean to do that. But it could have people out of the office. It's so many things. It just kind of gets to everything you do has a cost. Opportunity cost, cost of actually doing it, cost of learning that, so much stuff. And is this the right tool? And you might get to the end of it and say no, and then you throw it away and carry on. And that's operating cost. Yeah. 3, 2, with that answer. Whee! Day in the life! I wake on, I put on my tie, I brush my teeth, then I put on my clothes, because tie's most important.
You don't shower?
Shower at night, man. No, I shower in the morning. I'm being slightly facetious. Yeah, so day in the life, what does it look like to be a web developer? I have been working a lot with mentoring people getting into being developers, and the biggest misconception I think they have is how much time I do this. In a code editor, actually, let me preface that, because I do a lot of this in chat. Embarrassingly enough, I take a look at I use an app called Rescue Time, which tracks what I'm doing on my computer throughout the week, and it tells me at the end of the week and says you have been doing this much time in these applications, in these on these sites. Totally invasion of my own privacy, but I do it to myself so I can track it. It's kind of fun. I spend between 6 to 12 hours in software development in a 60-hour week. I put in about 60 hours in code. That's about how much time I actually spend in a code editor / terminal. It's like actually heads down doing code. It's about the time I do that. Spend a fair amount of my time in chat, working with our teams. We're remote. We're a remote first office, which means if everyone happens to be in the office, fantastic. You don't have to play remote, but anyone could be remote, and we do have a remote team in Mexico. So if you're working with any of them, everything's remote, which means video, conference calling, chat. We use an app called Zulip, but I think Slack, so we use a Slack-like. We use GitLab, similar to GitHub, so we engage with our code, read each other's code, comment on each other's code, spend a lot of time doing that. Spend a lot of time reading what we call PRDs, product requirement documents, working on what are we actually doing. Kind of like what she brings up. What is it supposed to look like? What's the user experience supposed to be? The user design. Spent a lot of time working with that, going back and forth between with products, saying, well, you're asking for the world. I can give you a small island with interest. And lots of conversations back and forth. I spend a fair amount of my day looking at tickets, just making sure that they describe the work that we're doing so that our project manager can best coordinate us, and then voice that upwards so that when our head of engineering is asked what we're doing, he can accurately say that, because just saying they're writing code doesn't work. The amount of things that I do that are not code are numerous, and sometimes you just sit there and stare at code, and unfortunately rescue time doesn't track that, which is annoying. Not automatically, you can manually do that. We spend a lot of time in meetings, good meetings. We have a rule of, we call it law of personal mobility. If you don't feel like you're benefiting from the meeting or can provide all that to say, at any point you can leave meetings, and we do. I'm just like, yeah, okay, I don't have any, so we just leave, which is great. Feel free. I've done a lot of public speaking to high school students, and it's actually kind of this really humorous thing. If you challenge them, like if you don't enjoy this and think you can spend your time better, feel free to leave. And usually about, a couple of them will leave, and then they'll trickle back in and realize, oh wait, never mind. But it's kind of funny. Ooh, cool, bells. So spend a lot of time making sure that what I'm doing when I am touching that code editor is the most efficient it can be. I have worked in some organizations that you were in the code editor 70% of the time, but most of the time we were throwing away our code because it wasn't what the product actually wanted. It shipped, it lived out in the world, and they said it didn't actually provide any value. Either get rid of it or it'll just now sit there like something that we don't need anymore. So that is a bit of what I do. Logistically wise, if you're really curious, I take the train in, I get in, I usually either have coffee at home or I'll walk to the coffee shop and grab a coffee, sit down, cull through emails and chat, make sure that nothing happened overnight. I'll usually make sure that no merge requests were assigned to me to review someone else's code. I'll take a look at what I'm needing to be doing. At the end of the day, we try really hard to write where we were so that anyone can pick it up, or if I happen to get sick, the person in the morning can kind of figure out where I was, and we'll totally just paste code in and be like, here's where I was, and here's this, and check out this line, and I was typing on, so we'll be super explicit. And so I check where I was, what I was doing, and dive into some code. In a couple hours, the rest of the office will usually be in. I get in really, really early just to get some work done. I'll pull my headphones off, say farewell to Celine Dion, say hi to the rest of the office. Probably start talking about what we're going to be doing in the day. Things do pivot quite a bit in the real world. There are some companies, VMware, that they are shipping something in 2018, late 2018. They know it. They're going to go for it until late 2018, then they'll, rinse, repeat, do it again. I was doing something on Monday, and late Monday evening, walked over and said, nope, we're not doing it anymore. We got to pivot to this. And I used to think, that's crazy. That's inefficient. That's life now. It's just life. It is kind of the beauty of writing web. We can pivot that quickly. I can be working on something, ship it, and our customers see it in a couple minutes. So that's a little bit of a day in life. Try to keep we at our org try to keep all of our meetings on Wednesday so that we're not kind of getting in and out of meetings. Usually if I have a meeting, I'll actually put a chunk of this is inefficient time around that meeting, because it takes about 45 minutes to get back into it because got to go get another cup of coffee. But yeah, so we try to keep all of our meetings on Wednesdays so that we just have one inefficient day. Those meetings include retrospectives to talk back on what went right and what went wrong. How can we work on it? We usually plan. We take a look at what needs to be done. We take a look at the big feature. We split it into smaller features that we can kind of say, okay, this chunk, whether it be we're going to build the button for this, submit email. We're going to build the capture email form. So we'll break it into those. We'll estimate how long each of those will take as best we can. Guessing most of the time. Usually over guessing. Usually under guessing. We try to get it right. Sometimes the under, sometimes the over. Calls in the middle. What's some of the other meetings we can? Yeah, it's pretty much code. Talk to QA a lot. QA comes over and says, you thought you wrote this right. QA is quality assurance. Yeah. They basically hit our code and say you did it wrong.
When you started looking at your code, because I'm QA and project manager are things I'm looking and exploring.
Yeah.
Is it when you're QAing, are you QAing how it appears on the front, like how it clicks from page to page to page? Or are you actually getting into the code, or like, because I QA'd a page and found literally 300 errors on a website designer's website and something, all the snapshots. But I can't tell you that this code is wrong, but I can tell you that this button doesn't, this doesn't meet the design.
Yeah, so.
Is that what QA is? You're talking about?
It depends.
Getting into the code that you have to know PHP.
No. It really depends. Some QA departments will absolutely require you to look at the code and know the code and be able to tell you exactly what's wrong, but most of the time not. Our QA team usually looks at the code and says, "Oh, they're touching these things. Now I have a better idea of maybe what could blow up." And usually they're actually just looking in what file, what folders are they in, basically. And they're like, "Oh, they're in the admin folder. Okay. We're going to check the admin pages. They're in the." But no, for the most part, they are taking a look at the PRD, which says this is the end result that this should be. And they try to hit that end result. And if it does not meet that, they throw it back at us and say, "What'd you do? No worky." Hit reject.
The good news is that one of next week's guest speakers is a QA manager.
Yeah, there you go. And lots of orgs do it differently. That's how we do it. Some orgs, I know some orgs are absolutely no code. You literally are just looking at a web page and you're matching it. So.
That would be my dream job.
But yeah. So yeah.
What's your code writing process like? Do you write it out on a piece of paper in a notebook first, and then type it out and correct it from there, and then go live, or do you just think of it and just type it in? I'd say usually we start with a whiteboard and say, okay, here's some of the architecture things that we'll need. Here's some of the new database columns we might need to store this new information that we're trying to do. Here's the potential user flow that the user will need to go through. Here's a couple of new components we'll need to use. I'm using components that are both an Angularism and just like component as an English word, so that's what I mean there, like a component. Here's a section of code, but yeah, a component that we'll need to build. So we'll pencil out user flows. We might write some bullets of, double check that we don't break this, double check that we do this, make sure that this query doesn't break, make sure that it passes, that we can load it in this, amount of time. So we'll write a couple of notes like that. Then that will probably also include taking a picture of it so it's on a phone. Pending, I'll write keep on the whiteboard. I do work in the office, and my team is usually only in the office. That works for us. Other times, our remote people, they'll use remote whiteboard, online whiteboards, and they'll do something similar, or they'll make diagrams, share them, comment, and all that fun stuff. They'll use stickies.io and do things like that. So usually you'll brainstorm what things are actually going to look like and how you're going to build it and the architecture behind it. Then you kind of just start diving in the code, and you might write a few tests that will verify. So let's say some of it is if you save this user account, it will require that you have an email and a phone number. Does it throw this alert?
that says you don't have these, so we'll write a test that tries to save a user without an email and a phone number, and yes, it does throw an alert. Great. That way, 2 years from now, when we, remove the ability to save phone numbers because who has phones anymore, it'll like, oh, hey, no, that actually will totally blow something else up, and it'll tell us. So we might write a test, and then we'll start writing the code. We tend to start writing the front end first, because that will usually, we have found, and you'll talk to someone else tomorrow, and they'll say the opposite. This is how we have found. We'll write the front end, and how it should engage with the back end is then usually dictated by the front end. And then we'll write how the back end will receive those button clicks, those events that we're triggering on the front end, and update the database as such. It's usually that's usually how it works.
Okay.
Rarely do we actually write code out in a notebook, if ever. If I needed something similar to that, I'll use codepen.io, and I'll just write a quick proof of concept there, shuffle it around. But yeah.
So for people who are like just learning how to code or web development or haven't even touched it at all, what things do you normally see that are either misconceptions or mistakes, or like things that you wish you knew whenever you had first started?
Yeah. I kind of will go back to what I said at the beginning. I've known several, and I've been on teams with people that all they want to do is code, and they're really hard to work with. I've worked with people then that try to solve a problem. And that problem could be, and I say problem, but they're trying to find a solution to something, whether it's needing a feature, solving a problem, fixing a bug, and they're the best people to work with because they're driven not by writing the code, but by solving the problem. And so I suppose I'm really glad I did that right. So I would say, but I've worked with people who didn't get that, and they're really hard to work with. So always be remembering you're solving a problem, not just writing code. Because to be perfectly honest, the less code you write, the better.
That just means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify here between the difference between solving a problem and writing code, because in my experience, if I'm writing code, that means I am solving a problem. What's the point of just writing code?
Great question.
But what does that mean?
Lots of people like writing code. Think of it like Rube Goldberg machines. Why would you do that? To squeeze a toothpaste tube goes through 14 different processes. You'd be amazed and look at code. Lots of people write Rube Goldberg machines. Rube Goldberg, yeah. They'll write that in code because it's really fun and fascinating and interesting. It's similar to just tinkering with things. Mm-hmm. It's fun.
So I guess it would be a matter of just seeing if you can do something, whether or not it's efficient for something, or if it accomplishes something really at the end.
Yeah, and also lots of times you might be trying to solve, maybe you are trying to solve a problem, but you're just enjoying the code, and all you wanted to do is to get the code done, and you miss the point, and ultimately miss some of the things that you could be looking out for, and be like, wait, does this even make sense?
It's like building a home without having an architect or structural engineer review your design before you start putting together the home.
Yeah, but yeah.
Or like can't see the forest because of all the trees are in the way.
Yes, a little bit. But yeah, so we can go back and forth on that. So other things that you really want to learn. You want to learn, as Bruce will say over and over again, you want to learn fundamentals. You want to learn the core foundation that you are working on. You want to know a little bit of CSS and why things might be doing what they're doing. But at the end of the day, you want to know how to communicate. You want to know how to tell whoever you need to tell that you need to do what you need to do and why it matters to them. And if you can't communicate, it doesn't matter how great a developer you are. But you can be an okay developer, communicate well, and get really good jobs.
And we have a future guest speaker in the room here who's sitting next to me who's going to talk about just those types of things.
Sweet.
So say hi to Christine.
Hi, Christine. Yeah, I'm dying to ask you.
Yeah.
It's Scrum or Kanban or where's your project management stack?
All the above and then some more, and
Okay.
yeah. We are kind of on sprints, kind of Kanban, not really Scrum. I believe we have a Scrum Master on our team. Or like
you want to talk about some of those things? That's a great question. These are new terms to a lot of people.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I just heard project management, my ears perked up, so that's where I'm
you beat me too. I was answering, then I was gonna circle back. But yeah, no. And I suppose I'm answering that in a dramatic way to say, like, now that you've seen that, now when I explain it, you go, oh, okay, and you'll realize all these are project management methodologies. I am not an expert in any of these. Kanban is brought over from Toyota, where it is, you have different phases of, do I draw this out? Basically, you have different columns. Column might be slated to be worked on, currently being worked on, in quality compliance, or QA, delivered to the customer, providing value. And you'll take each. You might have a card that says. And again, I'm not an expert in these, and there's probably a Kanban expert who's about ready to snipe me. But the gist of Kanban is you move your piece of work that says build this button to submit this email form from slated for development to in development to in QA to done providing value. Done in.
You like Trello.
Yeah. Trello is very Kanban-y. So that's Kanban.
Yeah.
Scrum, oh man, I'm going to get myself all sorts of trouble. I've been out of Scrum for a long time, but Scrum, it kind of all goes, and before I go into Scrum, goes back into the agile principles of software. I will pull this up because I don't know how to use a PC. Key commands, control is the thing I'm looking for. Agile principles. Agile manifesto, that's what I want. Ta-da! This is the Agile Manifesto, and it kind of gets into, and this is kind of what Kanban, Scrum, and again, someone's probably going to snipe me, but no one actually really knows what they mean, and no one actually fully follows them because every organization is different. So that's why I kind of answered that way in a dramatic. But the gist is we follow these principles. Highest priority is to satisfy the customer. Through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. And that the continuous delivery is kind of where it gets into the Scrum and the Kanban. And if you have better answers, please chime in. And if anyone else, chime in. But the gist is there's kind of agile versus waterfall. Waterfall being you get the specification, you build it, you plop it on the customer, and whether they like it or not, whether it actually solves their problem or not, that's what you get. Agile is more you build a tiny bit of it. We'll go back to the email submit form button thing. You build the very, very simple wireframe that doesn't actually send the email, but is the user interface. It doesn't have colors or rounded edges. You build that, you show the customer, and they say, oh, shoot, we should probably have a subject line in there. And they go, great, we'll add a subject line. Bring it back over. We'll add a subject line. We'll add some beautification, and we'll add a little bit of back-end component that'll start sending the email. Plop it back to the customer. The customer says, it'd be great if there was an alert that said that the email was sent successfully or an error. Great, we'll add that now. Back in here, and you kind of go back and forth. And you do these in sprints or iterations or all these different words that they use in these methodologies. Does my dance infer that there's lots of woo and magic and people don't really have agreement here? Okay, good.
This is what you use right now?
We are an agile shop where we do have we require a specification from product, but usually it's half-baked. Not because, and we actually just right before I headed here, we just had a meeting where basically we kind of had to humble ourselves as developers and say, you know what, product, we keep saying your specs are not complete, when in reality, there's no way for you to make complete specifications because you don't have omniscient brains. And we need to respect that and work with you to create these specifications. But usually we do take, there's a little bit of a spec. Usually it's half-baked. We'll start working on it and we'll go back and forth with product saying, here's this. Oh, by the way, we found this massive gaping technical hurdle that we do not want to go over. Can you change your spec? And they'll say, yep, go back and forth and back and forth until finally at the end of the day, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. We never, and I usually say done and I get myself in trouble, but there's one person on our team who will fervently, there we go, English. Fervently argue, never, ever, ever say done until a customer is satisfied. Because goodness gracious, if that email form went out and there was no subject line and it didn't have alerts if it had errors, it did not satisfy the customer, I cannot go, done! Time to go get pizza.
So it sounds like it helps out with version control and making sure you're always on the current document when you have so many different iterations that helps manage that for you. You're going back and forth. The client do this, that's a line, and like, so you don't send it wrong.
That's a given.
Yeah, that's
software development, they use version control, but it doesn't have to do anything kind of agile.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to your other question. You need to learn GitHub or something like it and Git. Practice it, use it well, write good commit messages, and you yourself in the future, but by that I mean when you wake up the next morning and realize what you wrote last night was completely crazy, but you wrote good commit messages and you knew why. Write good commit messages, learn that well on every single project you do. Doesn't matter if you're going to collaborate with you, yourself, and you, or 17,000 other people. Learn Git, learn GitHub, get it up there, and yeah.
Part of the program.
Yeah, there we go. Anything to add? I kind of went all over the place, but
yeah, kind of did go all over the place, but he covered a lot of material. I'll just give him some history points.
oh, awesome. And
you don't want to give away our talk.
but,
you hit on a really good point that whatever it is you're using has to fit the style of your team, the people you're working with, or it's useless.
yeah. Yeah, and lots of times the software program you are using dictates this a lot as well. So sometimes you're trying to be this other thing, but your software program only supports waterfall and project management software. And things you want to look for. You want to look at Jira. Jira. You want to look at that and kind of just read some of the things. Lots of companies will use that. That's something, but lots of companies use stuff like that. So that's, just have fun with that. And if PM, have fun. But at the end of the day, as a PM, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. As a project manager, you're not doing your job if you are not helping the customer, helping the developers see that they need to be on the customer. Because usually our PM, at least our PM, is the one reminding us, what are you actually doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, that's it. But yeah.
That's a good question to constantly ask yourself.
Oh yeah. No, Agile why is this not printed out behind my desk? But yeah, Agile Manifesto. This is absolutely fantastic. I had a mentor of mine that anytime I went to his office and we started chatting, he would just pull this up and, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna read this and I'll be back. But yeah. So we need there we go. Yeah, Hannah.
You said that the fundamentals of anything, as far as with programming languages, is important. Are there any things that you might be able to suggest to familiarize with those fundamentals without having to, throw yourself out to the sharks or get yourself your head over water? Is there anything that you would suggest, as a beginner can do without feeling overwhelmed?
I think with zero experience, you can open up or create a file, or whether it's text edit. You can do this in text edit. You can. I almost kind of recommend this as just a good practice. open up TextEdit or whatever, Notepad or whatever it is, create a new document, .html, index.html or whatever it is, .html. You might have to Google this, but just Google like a boilerplate HTML page or something like that. All that to say is to get, and it would be brilliant to learn that. Go to MDM, but kind of just a good. You just want boilerplate HTML. You just want the HTML, the head, the body, and the footer, and hopefully you have Bruce that has given you great resources that might just have that out there. Mm-hmm. I have a command on mine. There's an HTML tab in it, autofill, but do that. Write a title that says my page. In the body, write a couple of, just H1, just simple HTML. And Google it if you need. Like, I live in Google. I live in Stack Overflow. I don't copy paste or as a script kiddie. I don't do that. I try to understand what I'm doing. But yeah, you live in Google. You don't ever, it's never really from your mind. It's referencing old code. It's very rarely do you just get in a, oh yeah, this code, it's just flowing from my finger. No, it's like, okay, I did this one thing. Okay, save, wait for it to finish, transpiling, refresh. Nope, that didn't work. Oh, this is, okay, so HTML, just write it like a header. I did a thing, write some style that changes color, save it, close the file, double click on it. Usually it'll open in your web browser. If not, just drag it onto your Chrome shortcut, and there it is. It's as simple as that, and it starts there. And then you just solve a problem. Your problem might be, I want to make this page more beautiful. Fantastic. Start searching CSS and figuring out a couple of things. I had no, and you have a great resources in what Bruce is like. What I would give to have some of these resources, because I just went down so many rabbit trails. But at the end of the day, if you are solving a problem, determined to solve that problem, whatever it is, you're not going to stop.
So basically building a website, but starting way from scratch and just go brick by brick by brick, solving each problem by problem by problem, and just until it looks good?
It depends. I kind of bring that up as just a good example and a reminder of this isn't actually that hard. It really isn't. We have made it hard with transpilation and Babel and React. We have done this to ourselves. It's just HTML. It's simple.
Okay.
And you know what? It works every time. H1 will always give you a brilliantly big font, unless you use normalize and then someone hacked your normalize and it's not big anymore. And I'm sorry, Bruce.
You know what it is, too? It's understanding everything that you typed out. It's not just going and finding that thing on Google and pasting it in, or as I like to say, R&D or Robin duplicate.
Woo! That's a good one. I like that.
Matter of understanding exactly what that bit of code does.
Yeah. Okay. I do, when I start projects, I do start them so simple. I don't have a transpilation process to make my JavaScript more modular. I don't do that yet. Sometimes if I'm starting, I'm starting a project this week, I probably will start with a little bit I'll start with a bit more, I almost want to call it cruft, but I'll start with a bit more. I'll have a couple of style helpers that help me write better CSS or faster for me. I'll have some stuff that'll help me write some JavaScript faster, but I know what I'm doing. And I know that I'm going to need that complexity, not in a year, but tomorrow. But yeah, if you're working on your personal site, you have no business doing anything outside of HTML and CSS until you need a little bit of something that needs JavaScript. Then no, you don't get to install jQuery. No. You write it in JavaScript until you realize, oh wait, this could be a lot more efficient if I get jQuery. Now I can bring in jQuery. Or maybe you I want a little bit more app-like responsiveness and things to shuffle in and out, and I don't want the page to constantly be flashing as I go to new. So maybe it's time to do Angular, but you've gone there step by step.
So if you build a website and it looks good on a PC, but it looks like crap on a smartphone, is that when you start getting into different areas of computer codes to solve that problem as well?
If you are. Now we get into the principles of mobile first. It should always look, it depends on your target audience. And I used the example last year, I'll use it again. If your target audience is mechanics that are on computers with the covers on the keyboard that will never need to see a smartphone, no, you don't write mobile. That's expensive and no. But yeah, you should be doing mobile first. Pardon?
You design for the screen. The screen could be a mobile phone, it could be a browser, it could be that big tablet. No.
Yeah. All right.
Well, and that was, I was going to mention, and then it's important to learn the JavaScript, because isn't JavaScript how it's responsive to mobile?
No,
design?
that's CSS.
Oh, okay.
That's all CSS. Media queries. If you want to do some CSS and work through some CSS, one, I don't want to overdo anything that Bruce is doing. I'm assuming Bruce is teaching you, but
I don't teach that, but that's covered in the web design 1 and 2 classes.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you have any CSS questions, you can always reach out to me, because I do a lot of consulting on CSS.
You just want to talk about your LostGrid project, and then we'll wrap it up?
Sure. One thing I do, wow, I kind of forgot about that. I have an open source project called LostGrid. I am the maintainer for it. Open source, one thing that's cool about web is, or just code in general, is lots of it can just live in public places for anyone to use for free and make it better. A chap called Corey Simmons wrote LostGrid several years ago. It's pretty brilliant, and then he needed someone to maintain it, asked me to maintain it, and I've since completely rebuilt it and continued to make it better and added new features with the help of many developers around the world. I think we have like 17 other developers and then a lot of other people contributing ideas. We've all written the code together using GitHub as the tool to collaborate together. I maintain it. It gets between 50 to 70,000 downloads a week. It's used, Google uses it, a couple of big companies use it, actually a fair amount of big companies use it. It's been an absolute honor and privilege. It has only been the fact that it was the right time, right place.
What is it?
It is a grid framework, and it does what you're saying in CSS. You can say, in a small browser, I want this to be 1 and 1, like I want the fraction that this copy to be written in as 1 over 1. It fills the entire thing. But as it gets to 500 pixels wide, I want it to be 1/2. So that then
it's like a Bootstrap or a Sass?
Yes, except for it is CSS based. So in the CSS, you would write lost column 1/2.
Yeah.
And then it transpiles that into a bunch of CSS woo and wizardry that's
Reacts to. Every time when you're in CSS,
and it does it with legacy support. That's kind of lots of LostGrid is going away with new stuff, but legacy support. This is something that I do. Hello, I'm an org, not com. Someone has com and they're chomping on it. So it does this.
Yeah.
So you just write LostGrid this. This is that media query. So anything above 400 pixels, it's going to be 1/3. So it does this stuff. Then you can nest grids.
It's really lightweight.
It's super lightweight, and that's the key. It does Bootstrap has everything.
It's really heavy, and so is Bootstrap. And
Yeah.
it's hard to figure out when you have the Dreamweaver. It's hard to mess around with.
Yeah. And this is actually kind of one of those things. If you want to potentially contribute to a code base that has thousands and thousands of users, is used all over the world, you can contribute to this. You can help build LostGrid. It's super, super, super fun. Here's the docs for it. If you're curious, lost column, this is what you write, 1/3. That's what it spits out. And even that's actually still lightweight. So. Yeah, if you want to get into some fun CSS, you just get you're like, why do I need JavaScript? CSS does it all.
But Peter, it's important to recommend too that it's not only about the code; it's about maybe the documentation that people.
Oh yeah.
Like Ginny, you're a documentation guru. You could go in there and recommend changes like you do to me all the time.
Help me. Yeah. No.
Get your name on it.
Oh yeah.
Put that on the resume.
This is kind of the main core contributors get here, and actually I haven't updated this, but if you want to actually view it, you can then see. And as far as getting a code resume, this is a fantastic way here. 25 contributors. There we go. So anyone who's ever contributed, they're sitting right here. Anyone who's ever written code for this, and you could be on this list. And help, and not just be on this list to be on this list, but help out other developers. It's really cool. But yeah, spelling errors, fixing spelling errors for people. So many people are not from the United States and they write it in English and they need your help. Submit a merge request to help spelling. And if you don't have a submit a merge,
Can I go up here and do spell check and get my name on
Please do. I'm not joking. Please do. Absolutely. Oh, and I said merge request. I meant pull request.
Peter, I'll talk to you about her. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I was military, okay?
No, she's not.
No. Because it's sometimes this is a side project for me. So at 2 in the morning, I'm probably not writing the best grammar. Fix it. Grammarly plugin didn't work in my code editor. But as far as getting like a resume though, like I've been massively busy at work. I'm sorry I haven't contributed to open source. This was me putting that presentation up. But yeah, if you want to see what I write, like here's Lost. Here's all the commits that are in here. Here's the code. You can actually look at the code that I wrote. We've changed a couple of things. Now it's variable instead of function, things that documentation would really, really help out with. So, but yeah, this is LostGrid. If you would like to be involved, please, by all means, jump in. But I'm not the only project out there. I add a link for it last year. I'll do another link for it this year. Searching GitHub for help wanted. There's so many issues. So every project has issues. Most projects have issues. And here's an issue. We'd love to see how we can integrate this with Lost into Vue.js and Nuxt.js. I don't even know what Nuxt.js is. Gosh darn it, why? Well, this person would like to integrate this. Well, someone else is going to have to do it because I don't have time, I don't know Vue, and I don't know Nuxt. So I'll probably put help wanted on this and coordinate with people that I know, and people help with this. But every single issue can receive a tag. And I don't want to spend too much time, but I'll have a link on my site, and Bruce will link to it. But the help wanted, lots of these help wanted can be documentation, spelling errors. Lots of them are people from not from the United States or not English as their first language, and they need help. And when you do the spelling errors, what you're doing is you're making things readable. You're learning how to submit pull requests and engage with code, which is all public. Which allows me, as a hiring manager, to see how you engage, to see how you responded to that person that said, why are you fixing my spelling errors? I can spell gosh darn fine, you mother beeper. So that'll happen. And how do you respond with that? Do you respond back, kindly or, so got to be careful on here because as a hiring manager, I might see it. But people have come in here, I get job offers because of this, because they're like, man, you handled that turd really well. Can you do that at our company? All that to say, resume builder, get hired by helping with this.
Turd manager. Peter, I have a closing question for you.
Yeah.
That is, how long have you been a web developer?
I have been paid to write code for 5 years.
How long before you got paid to write code were you a web developer?
2 years.
So 7 years investment.
Yeah.
And you got a job without a degree, without having a true experience in being self-taught, and you were still able to pitch that.
The domain lapsed, so it's not here. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have anything, but I did have a little bit of a resume, and the fact that I had an app that you could go to, sign in, log in, and go to, and so people were able to see that, and they saw a couple of things online. But to be honest, I was actually, my Lyft driver that drove me here was like, how do I get a job? Know people. Mm-hmm. When I wanted my first job, I actually, like I said, I was getting married down here, and the company said, the company I was working for said, you're moving to Portland, and I said, no, I'm getting married and living in Corvallis. So they let me go, and I went to a person and said, by the way, you're hiring me, and I start next week. And he's like, okay, cool. And that's how I got my first job, writing code full time. But I knew him. I had a relationship. I'd written a couple of things for him and gotten paid, that's ultimately how I got my job, so know people. And I'm not the coolest person, but now you know me. If you want a card, I'll give you a card. You have
Twitter.
You can always reach me via my website or Twitter or things like that. I do try to get back to you Twitter. I'm a little bit slow sometimes, but you know me. I also know people, and get your networking is how you get jobs. Mm-hmm. I've never ever gotten a job by submitting an application, getting them to have me call me back, and going in for an interview. I've never done it, and I know a lot of people who have never gotten those jobs that way either. And we have hired. I don't think we've hired any since I've been there. We've hired no one like that.
But you have a body of work that's publicly available for people to see.
Yes. But before I had a big public body of work, I had an app that was out there that that proved that I could get something from point A to point B, even if it wasn't the next Google or Facebook. If I can build something from point A to point B, I've shown determination and project management on,
commitment.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Anything else for Peter? Because we're getting close to our cutoff time.
I'll send him emails.
Yeah, I mean, by all means, yeah, I have contact up here somewhere. In about. I hide it as Scotch. It might actually be in, yeah, it's down here. There it is. There's an email thing. You can click that. It'll do a thing. Yep.
All right. Peter, anything else? Anyone have any other further questions for Peter? All right, let's give Peter a big round.